picked that today, to just die completely. So I had to go run to Best Buy.
That day of all days.
Yeah, I was like, oh, great, I get to turn my computer back on, and it's dead. But yeah, I went and got a new power supply at Best Buy, performed surgery on my computer.
Well, through all your trials and tribulations, we're glad you're here, because we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and welcome to the Vomitorium Weekday show for the 14th of October, 2021. As always, I am your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer, who I'm assuming is doing way better, given that he actually has air conditioning now.
Yes, so much better. And refrigeration.
Oh, yes, that's great. You know, it's like, I want to use the stuff in my fridge, but I don't want to open it.
Yeah. Luckily, the only thing that I had that really could go bad, well, I had some leftovers from dinner, like the night before, and milk were really the only things that could really go bad. So I put those both in my freezer. Like, I put them on top of the ice as it melted slowly. But yeah, not having electricity for over 24 hours really sucks.
Yeah.
But luckily, I have this nice power bank that I got years ago. That's like a 30,000 battery that I actually was able to
charged.
Yeah, my phone, and I actually even plugged it into my laptop, so it kept them charged like for the whole day.
Nice.
So I was able to work and everything.
I wish I had something like that back when I was younger, because growing up pretty poor with a family that, honestly, we had enough money that we shouldn't have had any problems, but my parents were also very irresponsible with money. I would sometimes go for like a week or so on end without electricity, and boy, would it have been nice if I had like some big battery backup just sitting there. It's like, man, I've been holding out, but it's been 5 days since I got to work on something. Let me at least plug it in and get a few hours or something in.
Yeah. I was glad to have that. It supposedly can charge a phone like 7 times. So apparently it was enough to not only keep my phone charged, but actually keep my laptop charged.
Nice.
I was able to work, and in the heat, that was the worst part.
It also made me glad that game systems used to run on batteries, because those were cheap. And I could run up to the store. It's like, ha, I could still play my Game Boy even though the power is out.
Yeah.
Can't do that with a 3DS or a Switch. Once that dies, it's like, I gotta go find somewhere to charge it.
Yeah. Shoot, what was... Completely forgot. So I got a home quick COVID test.
Oh, yeah.
And tested negative for COVID. So I'm like, well,
you're healthy.
I guess. Like, either it was gone by the time I tested, or maybe I never had it. But then I'm
maybe something else fucked you up.
Yeah, why was I so tired, and why did I have a headache for like a week? So that's actually more concerning. I'm like, well, if I'd had COVID, if I'd had COVID, that would have been at least a perfectly reasonable explanation. But why was I so goddamn tired?
Well, it is fall. Have you considered that maybe you just had the plain old flu?
Yes, that's possible.
Yeah.
Definitely possible. But whatever it is, it's gone.
Well, that's good. Glad to hear you're feeling healthy.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Went for a walk, came back, recorded some voiceover lines for somebody, and then had to look up some stuff for us to talk about today, and now we're here. Speaking of, are you happy? Are you excited that tomorrow we're getting more news about a game that most people haven't played in over a year?
Let me guess. Is it Genshin Impact?
No, the Animal Crossing Direct is coming tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Which might actually get me back into it because it looks like there's going to be quite a few interesting things teased. We have the headway that Brewster and the Roost might be back, and that was one of the things that I was missing. So I might play it a little bit, actually push myself to that point. I left off still without Isabel at my island. I don't have the town hall yet.
What? Okay.
Well, you can remember I had to restart from scratch when I got my Switch. And then I was pushing it off because I didn't want Isabel on my island because I hate that dog. But I'm probably going to need to be past the town hall if I want the Roost. So I think I'm going to cave in and finally just get everything ready and upgraded.
Yeah, you gotta get ready to be a barista.
Yeah.
Start serving people coffee.
I want my tea or my coffee with the pigeon milk. That's all I want. My
Very
coffee
good.
with the pigeon milk.
And in New Leaf, I had so many bags of coffee beans that I don't know what to do with. But
what am I even going to do with all these beans?
Yeah, because he just kept giving them to me.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. Whatever happened to what was his name? The guy who was at the campsite in New Leaf.
The guy at the campsite in New Leaf.
Yeah, the hippie.
The hippie. I don't remember.
Don't just keep repeating what I'm saying.
No, I'm trying to think what you're talking about.
Harvey.
Harv. Oh, Harv's in freaking New Horizons.
Oh, is he on some other
camera guy? He's got an island of his own. You go there. He's got a big house, and you take photos, and you can drop anything that in your catalog in there.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Harvey's there. Let's say there's a few characters you might qualify as a hippie. That's what I was trying to think. Yeah. Like, honestly, when I think hippie, there's two characters that come to mind that have been in the game even longer than Harv. And that's like Pascal is kind of hippie. Intentionally, because he has like the mind-blowing phrases and stuff he gives to you. And KK Slider was kind of a hippie for the long time. He's actually a nudist. He doesn't wear a shirt or anything. He just walks around playing his guitar from town to town.
Isn't he supposed to be a beatnik, though?
Yeah, and the beatniks are kind of like a derivative of hippie.
Okay.
Yeah. Dirty hippies.
Yeah,
and shit.
I keep looking at it on my Switch, and I'm like, I don't want to touch it. It's like, I don't know.
But
I don't want to. I don't know why. It just, probably because I know my house is going to be filled with cockroaches.
Oh, yeah, but it's actually a lot easier to get rid of them in this game than the previous ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the way they spawn and stuff, it's easy to just sweep a cockroach from the house fast.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah, I remember I didn't touch.
I think it's the time investment, right? Versus what you get out of it. In previous games, I felt like I got a lot more out of my time investment than this game was. Even though, like, literally what you were doing for your neighbors were running chores most of the time. But in this game, literally everything I do to make any progress just feels like I'm doing chores.
Yeah. I feel like, I'm at the point where I have all the tools necessary where I can sort of terraform and I need to like reorganize my island, move buildings around and everything. But it's just a daunting task. That's kind of where I left off, where I was like, okay, I really need to like spend some time and map out where I want my island and move buildings around and do all this stuff. And I was like, that's such a daunting task. I don't know where to start. So that's kind of where I
you gotta grid it out.
Checked out. Yeah.
Right.
And
take a photo of your map, pull it into like Photoshop, and then draw where you want the things to be.
Well, there's an online tool I think it's from a third party. I don't think it's official, but you can actually go and edit a map, and lay it out exactly how you want. I'll have to find it, but there's actually an online thing where you can map it out on a website. I have to find that.
I wouldn't be surprised. It might even be on the Animal Crossing community website, because they used to let you go and also make your town on your profile. Like, you'd go to the game, be like, here's a town that I have. Here's where all the buildings are located.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that site until one of my users got banned for my own fault, because I was a terrorist.
Oh. Yeah, it's called Happy Island Designer.
Oh, cool.
And if you just Google Happy Island Designer, actually here, for anyone currently watching, I'll put the link in the chat. But yeah, obviously you'd have to, if you wanted to start with what your island looks like, you'd have to kind of customize it to that. But
excuse me.
It gives you a few basic layouts, and then you just have to customize it yourself. But yeah, I thought maybe I need to just do that, use that tool, and then figure it all out. There's just so much to do. I thought originally, I was like, I want to do a lake that's shaped like a Triforce or something like that. But then I tried to do it with the terraforming tool, and I was like, oh my god, this is so difficult. To make a triangle is very, very complicated.
Basically, what you have to do is you have to make the if it was made out of pixels first, and then you have to go and level off as many of the sides as possible, but not the tops or the corners, because if you try to make a triangle out of the corners before you actually already have it set everywhere else, all it's going to do is destroy those two pieces at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very difficult to make corners.
Yeah.
Except just straight edges. Like you can make a rectangle very easily. Yeah. Triangle's a little more difficult.
It's too powerful for that. That's the problem. Triangle is the most powerful shape.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But you want to know what's pissing everybody off today, or at least it's pissing me off, and there's a lot of other people that are also pissed off.
What?
And it's the thing that always pisses me off. It's involved with Pokemon. You know how easily I get peeved when it comes to Pokemon. So.
Yeah, is it something to do with, I saw Pitaya did a couple of tweets.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see his tweets. What were they about? I can't hear you. I don't know why I can't hear you. I don't know. Connection got disrupted. Try muting and then unmuting you? I don't know. I have no idea why I can't hear you.
Oh, no.
Hey, there you go. I can hear you now.
I think my Discord just freaked out because I couldn't hear you. I think it was all on my end.
Yeah, probably because I could hear you now perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think my Discord, all of a sudden everything just paused and then nothing worked. So
yeah,
I just reset everything.
Yeah. So I did not see what Pitaya tweeted about at all.
Something about Pokemon. So
okay.
Go ahead and I'll tell you if he was talking about the same thing.
Okay. So In Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, well, one thing I saw some people complaining about, but I liked, so this isn't the thing I was complaining about, is a lot of people are complaining that TMs, the technical machines, are going to be single-use items, which is how they were back in Diamond and Pearl. So I like that. I want them to be the way they were. And I'm calling people stupid for complaining about that. It meant you actually had to think about who you were going to give what in the game. The thing that I'm complaining about is that XP share is in the game, but it doesn't function the way it did in the original game. So you know how experience share worked in X and Y, right?
I mean, if it was more than... not really. I mean,
the way it worked in
I sort of did.
Is that it was a key item that you could turn on or off, and it affected everyone in your party, right? So even if the main person who fought in the battle would get like half of the experience, and then the rest of the half would be divided amongst your whole party, or it would end up evening out depending on how many people participated in that fight, right?
But it was actually an item you had to get?
Well, it was a key item that you ended up getting, yes. So that it was either on or off on it. But that's not how it worked in the previous games. In the previous games, before X and Y, it was a equipable item that you got that you gave to a single Pokemon, and they would receive a share of the experience from that battle. Even
only the one that had it.
Only the one. Yes.
Okay.
And it had to take up an item slot. So if a lot of times you would turn it off when you're running into the Elite Four or something, you would just, because that Pokemon is probably going to have to participate in battle. You can't just have like a weaker Pokemon absorbing experience unless it's like your 5th time through the Elite Four and you've got like level 99 Pokemon and you're just using this to power level something. But you would take it off because it's like, well, they need a more important item if they're going to be participating in battle.
Right.
And that's how it functioned in the original Diamond and Pearl. This version, experience share is going to be a key item like in X and Y and beyond, except you can't turn it off. There's no option to turn it off for traditional leveling if you want.
So if it's a key item, that means no Pokemon has to hold it.
No Pokemon has to hold it.
And it just works for your whole party.
Yeah, and you will get it at a certain point in the game. It will be given to you from game events, and you cannot turn it off. So after that point in the game, your experience will just be shared among every Pokemon in your party at all times.
Mm-hmm. Like in Sword and Shield, you don't have to get any item. It's just the sharing is just on.
Yeah.
The whole time. Right.
Yeah. Which I also
don't like. It's just a feature.
I don't like that you can't turn it off.
I've come to the conclusion that you're an old coot. Or maybe a codger.
It's like, I don't care so much in the newer games, right? Because it's a new game, so the system is changing over time, right? Like, in X and Y, I still like the fact that you could turn it off. But because the game was originally designed around that, they could mess with the experience values. So where it's like, okay, the proper way to play this game is with the experience share on. You're actually going to have to grind even longer than normal with it off, right? And you could technically do that in a remake of a game. My problem is, for something that's supposed to be a faithful remake, means they are changing a lot to it if they are rebalancing it for the experience share to always be on. And that's just a red flag for one of many changes that might be in the game that makes it less faithful to being to the original as a remake.
Well, usually what they've done with the remakes is they've remade them in the vein of like 2 generations later, right?
Usually. But that's also when Game Freak is the one doing this. This is outsourced to a third party.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a problem with... I mean, I think it sounds intriguing to basically allow you to turn it off. That is a shame.
Yeah.
That they don't allow you to turn it off.
That's my biggest thing. Like, I wouldn't care if it was an option there, especially for players who want an easier experience. It's like, okay, we could just turn it on. But the fact that the option to turn it off isn't there is what bothers me.
Yeah, that's a shame. As for the TM thing,
yeah.
So Pataya and I were agreeing that we liked reusable TMs. But I can understand that too. I mean, if it's, I mean, I think I'd be okay either way. It gives you, you know, if it's one-time use, well, then that changes your strategy.
Yeah, it makes you think about who you're going to give it to, like a lot harder.
Yeah. I don't have a problem, frankly, with reusable TMs, but I also don't have a problem with non-reusable.
Yeah. Well, I like the solution they came up with like halfway through the lifetime, right? Is where they started adding post-game sections to Pokemon, and by post-game they mean it's the end game, but it was always there. Where after the Elite Four, you go to like the Battle Frontiers or whatever, and there you could basically buy every TM that you had gotten through the game, right? So it's like during the main game, you had to think about who you were giving it to, but if you wanted to give the same move to somebody else later on, you could just grind up some money and then go and buy the TM to give it again. And I thought that was a pretty balanced way of doing it, instead of just giving you this kind of like the free item that like it lets you make mistakes without consequences. And I think the reason they started doing that particularly is because they started building Pokemon more around you'll only play this game once, right? Or play it through once. Like whatever file you get will be your continuous file forever. I've played through like Red maybe 6 times. Not getting all the Pokemon each time, especially because like the only way to do that without special events is to glitch it. But I've played through the main campaign of Red and gotten at least like 70% of the Pokemon 6 times through. Because that game is, as janky as it can be, a well-crafted game that has a lot of replay value. Like, it's fun to go through the main adventure. A lot of times, what I would do as well is I would get both games because of version differences. And one of them would be like my I never restart this and I can use it as a bank game. And the other one would be I enjoyed the campaign of this game. I'm going to restart this one after transferring the better Pokemon to the other one. But they're not... I don't think Pokemon is being built around replay data value anymore. And I think that's one of my bigger problems with it. Because when you don't build a game around replayability, you build it a lot differently. And I think a lot of the stuff that I personally really enjoyed from Pokemon came from a lot of the design that comes with building a game for replayability. Which is why I wasn't upset when Sword and Shield said there wasn't going to be a national dex. Because to me, that sounded like, oh, keeping the, what's it called? The number of Pokemon you're catching limited means we're going to go back to replayability. Because you're expected to be able to go and get all of the Pokemon within a single playthrough. However long that playthrough is.
Which Pokemon are in? Is it just selected ones from each generation?
In which game?
In Sword and Shield. Sword and
Shield? Yeah, it's all the new Pokemon for that game, and then the ones from each generation that they thought would make sense to the region. Since it's a very England, Scotland, just UK-ish region in general.
Well, not being a diehard fan, that doesn't bother me either. that sounds decent.
No, that's fine.
Because I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to. What are we up to? 1,000 different Pokemon?
Yeah, you want to catch 1,000 Pokemon every single game?
Not really.
I personally thought that increasing the Pokemon list every single game, but then also making it to where you can fill that Pokeball Dex in every game, is part of what was killing replayability in Pokemon and why they were moving further and further away from that. Yeah, but like... And I thought Pokemon Home combined with the fact that we weren't going to have national dexes in games anymore, was actually a fix to that, where they were going to go back to making games for replayability. Turns out that's not the case. It seems more so that they still want you to only have one playthrough this game because they're trying to make the games more on continuability. It's like, we want you to play through this game once until the next game is ready, and then we want you to play through that game once until the next game is ready, and so on and so forth. That's why everybody was so excited when Gen 1 was released on the Virtual Console, because those are probably, Gen 1 and 2 are the most replayable of all the Pokemon games. Gen 3 is not too far on 3DS. When they
3DS?
Yeah. 3 is still very replayable too. Like, it's not trailing behind that far. But then it slowly becomes less and less replayable. And one of the reasons 3 was so replayable is, while it introduced the National Dex, but you couldn't even get most of those Pokemon until the remake of Fire Red and Leaf Green. So it was still kind of just like this small isolated Pokedex where you had like 200 Pokemon to catch in that region, some of them old, like most of them new. And you can just like do that over and over again. It's like, it's been a few years, let me replay through Ruby and Sapphire.
Yeah. So Diamond and Pearl, one-time use TMs.
Yeah.
But non-turn-offable XP share.
That's actually the thing that bothers me the most, right? It's like they're being inconsistent on new and old features. If you're going to make it like a new game, you might as well just go all out and make it like a new game. If you're going to have XP share you can't turn off, then let people use TMs as much as they want. But if you want to make it like Diamond and Pearl, then go back to the way things were. Just like, I don't know, make it more fluid or whatever. Like,
yeah, I wonder if it's, I guess, being a third-party developer, they just kind of picked and chose without any rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess Game Freak could have done the same, but...
Yeah, like even the article I'm reading, too, they're like saying the same thing over here on Games Radar. It's like, but then other systems like single-use TMs appear, so it's not really clear what's driving those features that are and aren't returning.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, I can imagine that most people, it seemed like Pataya was saying the exact opposite of you.
Yeah.
He was saying he likes the XP share, but would have preferred, multi-use TMs.
Well, no, I think he's saying the same thing as me, in a sense. He would prefer all of one or the other. He's just on the side of the other.
Yeah,
he doesn't want this split difference, which I think him and I agree on. We want the other side of the split difference, but if you're going to have one or the other,
it seems like
also would prefer to have it my way than have like this weird split version.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to make they're going to make some people are going to be happy about one and unhappy about. Basically, everyone's going to be unhappy about something.
Well, yeah, and it's also really bad for and I think this might be the real reason. It's really bad for competitive Pokemon, right? Because experience share really fucks with the Pokemon EV training system. Do you know how EVs work? I
mean, in principle, I don't know how it applies to what we're talking about, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll explain for everything. So Pokemon have two values as they grow. They have their IVs and their EVs. The IVs are the inherited values. So this is like what the Pokemon has at the start when either you catch it or you breed it, right? More important when you're breeding Pokemon because it's the values they inherited from the parents. A lot of people, they'll even toss and release eggs until they get the IVs that they want, right? The EVs are the values you get as you give them experience, right? And it will depend on the Pokemon they fight. And different Pokemon, you want different EVs as they grow. So this is where, like, I want this Pokemon to be really agile. I want their, like, speed to go up faster. So I'm going to grind them against Zubats because that's what will end up boosting that. Experience share basically means that you have less control over how all the Pokemon end up growing. Yeah. So then you have to, like, okay, well, now I have to do a party where every single Pokemon in the party that I'm currently raising want the same values.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Min-maxing in Pokemon is, like, so far beyond what I would ever imagine doing. It's just like...
But you know what? It's not a majority. I don't even really do it. Actually, one of the things I really liked about X, like, talking about, like, well, let's go all in or all out in one system or other. X, to make, X was good for the competitive scene, though. It got more people into it, because instead of having to battle Pokemon to control your EVs, you could raise the EV values within, like, because it's all capped within a hex system, so, like, 256 is the highest number that you can get, right? Or whatever. So... instead of fighting Pokemon to raise it, there was this little training gym in your, like, Poke Watch or whatever your item thing was in that generation. And you could go down and bring a Pokemon to the gym, and you could get, like, these bags from the punch, and if they hit the right bag, it would raise their stats, and if you feel like you screwed up, you could get a reset bag, which would reset their EVs, and you could start over and do it again. It was actually really good for people who wanted control over their Pokemon for competitive play, which I thought was a really good thing to bring it to a game that had full party experience share, because then it's like, okay, like I was saying before, the game was balanced around there being a full party experience share, and they gave you a way of making up for it, which is why I did not complain about in that game. Not only could you turn it off, but the rest of the game was, like, built to where you could substitute the things you would have done previously with it. They did not bring it back and stuff after that. And I don't know if this game is going to have that, but the fact that they have not had that little training gym in any of the games after X and Y makes me doubt that they will.
Yeah.
So, to me, it just feels like they're making their choices specifically to hurt competitive Pokemon, which is, like, again, not the majority, because I don't even fall into that, but it's like a good third of people who bought the games historically were competitive Pokemon players.
Like, do you think they just don't know about that? Like, it's just kind of...
They are fully aware of how their system works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how people...
And they are intentionally... They're intentionally trying to get rid of...
To me, it looks like that, but I can't tell. I don't... Especially where they're talking about accessibility, right? And then there's, like... Last generation didn't even have full, like... GTS options and stuff like that for trade, and they even made battling people you didn't know pretty hard. It seems like they're just less friendly towards the, I wouldn't even just say competitive, but like the hardcore Pokemon playing scene, and are just leaning more and more into the casual gameplay, which is like 2/3 of the audience and growing. But I think the part of the reason it's growing is because they've been hurting the hardcore side of it more and more each generation.
Yeah.
And I kind of fall in the middle there. I've always played Pokemon kind of casually, but I like playing it casually in some of the ways that, like, the hardcore players do. You know, like, I like paying attention to certain things. I like a little challenge in my game and stuff, too. And I do occasionally like battling against other people. So I appreciate all the stuff that's in the game for those, like, competitively hardcore players. I think that stuff makes the game richer and a better experience for everyone, even on the casual end, which is how I've always played it, is on the casual end.
Yeah. Well, you know, they're never gonna satisfy everyone, I guess.
Yeah. But, like, I don't know. I kind of just wish that they would give a bone to the hardcore players and kind of at least just go back to how things were being done in X and Y, because I thought that was a really good balance of, hey, we made this game much easier, like admittedly way easier. We give you a lot of stuff for free so that you can actually get through the campaign and enjoy the story that we made for you. Have your kind of almost like I'm playing an anime experience because I watched it a lot as a kid. And also, we gave all of this supplementary stuff that was also a pretty hard grind to satisfy those who wanted more of a hardcore experience. And you basically could choose your own difficulty level of the game, and the people who wanted to battle each other in a highly competitive circumstance, like in arena, could do so at the end of the game. I don't know why that can't be the attitude they bring into every single game, if they're worried about accessibility, because the counterside to making things more accessible to casual players is that you also need to find ways to not make it less accessible to hardcore players, because they are a part of your audience. And X and Y, I thought, was pretty accessible to both sides of the audience. I don't know.
Well, speaking of
Yeah,
catering to both hardcores and casuals, I take it you haven't seen it, but there was a wonderful interview. Shoot, let me bring it up here. See if I can find it. Yes, there was a wonderful interview of Yoshi P.
Hey, we talking about Final Fantasy. Let's go.
Yeah. The game, I guess the lead game dev of Final Fantasy 14
and 15
was interviewed.
Or not 15, 16.
Oh, and 15.
14 and 16. He's doing 16.
Okay. Well, they were talking about 14. He was interviewed by Asmongold and Rich Campbell, who is another big streamer who I guess has been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14. And I highly recommend, it's on Asmongold TV, which is his YouTube channel. At least an hour. I'm not sure if there's more footage somewhere else, but I don't think so. It's about an hour long, and about half of it's in Japanese. He's got a translator. But if you're interested at all in the ins and outs of how MMOs are developed, or at least how Final Fantasy 14 is developed and how it's going and what the plans are for the future and stuff, I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic interview. I watched it from beginning to end. I was just enthralled. And he goes into...
Send that to me.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I'll put it in the chat and then I'll send it to you separately if you wish. But he goes into... Yoshi P goes into talking about things like catering to casual players and hardcore players.
Yeah, because you have to understand you have multiple audiences.
Yeah, with an MMO especially. And he goes into, how they do that, how they approach things. And there's an interesting part where they talk about developers versus the players, and how he was actually lamenting that a lot of cases there's this adversarial relationship, and they definitely don't have that in Final Fantasy 14. And then he went into something that Asmongold has talked a lot about, the fact that a lot of developers of games like World of Warcraft clearly do not play their own game.
Yeah. Which is not the case when it comes to Final Fantasy. A lot of the devs play the game as players.
Yeah, exactly. And he was talking about how he plays it all the time. And he loves it. And, he loves interacting with other players and all this kind of stuff. And so it's really long, and it goes into all kinds of different things. But
well, that's why they're quick to fix things, too. Because as people who play the game, even if they don't quite realize something's a problem, because they probably played it before they released it. They have like their dev server where they can try things out. They are playing it with other people, and they can see other people's complaints in real time when they're, say, running Praetorium before they decided to not let people skip the cutscenes, and there's a new person in their party, and somebody else is forcing to skip the cutscenes, and now in the halfway through this like 5-minute cutscene, they're saying 15 seconds until forced to the next area. Right. Yeah. So like, oh god, but this is like the most important part of the entire first campaign of the game before we have add-ons. New players need to be able to see the cutscenes, so they just made that in all main sequence quests at a certain point you cannot skip the cutscenes in. And it's like, well, that was made actively because they're playing their own games, and when they hear a complaint like that, they got to see people make those complaints in real time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And he went a little bit in depth into Ultima Online, which was kind of cool. And because apparently he was a big player of Ultima Online. But then he talked about the mistakes they made in not fully communicating patches. Yeah. What things were being fixed, what things were being changed, and stuff like that. And he was just, he was lamenting the fact that they did a very poor job of communicating with the player base. And that was one of the, early lessons that he learned about like an MMO and how he doesn't want to make that mistake and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, like the Final Fantasy XIV patch notes look as detailed as like any competitive game, like a fighting game or a MOBA's patch notes are. They let you know like every tiny little thing that's being changed about the game.
Yeah. And what else was he talking about? He talked a bit about Endwalker. All he said was like they asked him the upcoming content patch, and they asked him if the recent influx of new players had caused them to make any changes to that, and he was like, no. He's like, we didn't have time, for that to have any impact. Yeah. But he said, but going forward, obviously the next content patch will obviously take everything into account but they were already like well on their way to making this next patch. He's like, we didn't have time to incorporate anything new in it.
Of course not. Because they were working on this for probably like a year coming up to it. It's like most of the stuff is already set in stone. They're just like fine-tuning everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, at one point he listed off all the games that he plays that influence his decisions, and that's or the creative process. He said he likes looking at games like New World and seeing what they're doing and having this cross-pollination of ideas from other games. New World,
from what I've been seeing and hearing, I feel like talking about a game that's been making a lot of mistakes as an MMO. And it hasn't been learning from the mistakes of other people. Oof.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, the link is in the chat.
No mounts in New World. Like,
really?
At all. Yeah, there's no mounts.
Nope. No mounts at all.
No. There are no mounts. They also have limited fast travel. Yeah. So like they kind of have the respawn scroll type thing where you can go back to an inn that you set as your home. But that's pretty much the only real form of fast travel, other than like maybe you can buy a buggy to a place or whatever. But it's really limited. You basically have to run everywhere on foot through the whole game, and there's no sprint button either.
Mm-hmm.
So you're traveling this huge ass map at the normal walking speed of your character.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's like, as opposed to say like 14. which I think does travel kind of as best as you can. You have your normal kind of walking speed. They give you a sprint from the start of the game that lasts for like 15 seconds on like a 30-second cooldown, so you have to wait like a additional 15 seconds until you can sprint again. Because, I mean, you could be foolish and run somewhere fast, or you could actually use it to get away from enemies, right? Like, you could choose whether you're going to be smart about it. There are chocobo porters from the very beginning, so if you want to just ride to the nearest town, you could do that. Or you could get off halfway, but you still have to pay the full price of riding to the next town. Then around 20, you get your first mount, and you can summon that anywhere to go to anywhere. And you can also attune yourself to crystals around the world. So not only do you have like your normal respawn Earthstone or Hearthstone type thing, right? But you also have the ability to just pay like 100 gil to go 2 towns over instantly. And it's like, no, that they have a very well-functioning system for how big their map is. I don't know how a game like New World from Amazon Game Studios can look at all of these MMOs in the past, all the complaints people have ever made about traveling, and decide this is how we're going to make our game.
Yoshida goes into stuff like, you know, leaving out stuff that's just a waste of time, like repairing weapons and, you know, just kind of time wasting stuff that other MMOs feel like they had to have in them for some reason.
I wish 14 would get rid of repairing weapons.
Oh, 14 still has repairing?
I don't know if that's something that you only deal with in the older parts of it. Like if you leave a Realm Reborn, it stops. But yes, weapon fatigue is a thing in 14. It's not expensive. Like most of the time, you just stop at like the nearest town. There's a smith there, and you pay like 10 gil for all of your weapons to be brought back to 100. And half the time you're going through weapons so fast because you're leveling that it's like you replace a weapon before it's even out of the green.
Yeah, maybe it was something else they talked about. One interesting thing that did come up was they're talking about the community and how helpful the community is for like noobs and stuff, like to help people. He said the one thing he said that was kind of funny was like, sometimes I wish people wouldn't be so helpful. He's like, sometimes I feel like they're kind of maybe ruining the experience a little bit. Like, and he's basically implored people like, don't be overly helpful. Like, you know, let people discover things.
Like if somebody asks a question, that's one thing, but
I think he felt like people were giving spoilers or trying to over help when you know, a new player needs to kind of learn stuff on their own and discover stuff on their own. So he was just saying, you know, I really do appreciate how helpful and nice the community is, but you know,
I've read a lot of interviews with him. I feel like wildly Yoshi P has like a very similar mentality about like how games should be that I do. Like I find myself agreeing with him a lot on stuff. And especially with an MMO like that, a lot of the game is just exploration and discovery. And it's cool, especially if you start at the beginning with a new player, and maybe not somebody who's like starting a new character and have played before, but you're starting from the very beginning with another new player, and like your little merry band of people are exploring the world at the same rate, and everything's new to you. That's always kind of fun. But a lot of times there are people who are like really eager, like they're gun-ho to like recruit this person into their friends list and be like, hey, let me show you how to do everything in the game. And it's like, no, don't, please.
So he mentioned that. But definitely go watch that. It's very interesting. And he did get into stuff about, you know, he got into a bit about, you know, like solo players versus people who really like multiplayer. And I guess apparently there's some really good quests and things for solos and for people like who are only in like groups of 4, for instance.
Well, the whole game is built around parties of 4.
Yeah. There's not so much, emphasis like in WoW on these 10 or 15 person raids and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like there are some pretty good raids for large parties. Like the final dungeon or duty, as they call them, the final duty in like each of them are like an 8-man or whatever raid, or like, it's a large party. I think maybe it's like 10, but they do have different things. So like the normal game is built around what they call light parties, which are a party of 4. So every duty that you do up until like the end of a campaign is going to be a light party, and then there's like a raid party, which is, or whatever, is going to be the larger ones that you do for the final dungeon and then all the post dungeons in that campaign. And like the way to get to them, though, most quests can be done solo, but they're a little difficult if you want to do it solo. But that's actually kind of a good way if you want to play a difficult game. If you want more of an easy game, it's like, well, they're kind of balanced-ish for like a 2 to 3 person. So if you have all 4 people running around, then you're going to have like an okay, kind of easy but fun time playing each of the non-dutied quests.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I'm not sure if this is exactly what they were talking about. It sounded like they were talking about like at least one fairly late game duty quest that's a single player.
Maybe. Oh, I don't know. I've never played past sections of Heavensward, so I could not tell you. I only know like really a Realm Reborn.
Yeah, you'd have to watch it to know, because they do mention it by name, and I didn't know what they were talking about. But he was saying, Asmongold, I think, was saying that he thought it was cool that there's at least some stuff that's specifically geared towards single players if you want a solo. So and of course they asked him if there was going to be more of that, and of course his answer was, I can't say right now.
Yeah.
But it did sound like, the guy, what was really cool was that the guy was like totally cool. Like I couldn't imagine a lead dev at Blizzard of World of Warcraft like doing this sort of interview. And at the end, even he was like, I hate this pandemic stuff. I hate doing this Zoom call. We need to meet up in person and go to a bar or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that would be great.
Well, that's the thing, right? Especially about like Japanese companies. They're talking about widely, even if the corporation ends up doing some kind of like horrible things for like their consumers and stuff, the developers are still mostly all gamers. Like every single one of them, they're still kind of like, there's this understanding that if you work in an industry in Japan, it's because you're part of that industry in more than one way, right? Like even accountants or salarymen, they usually all meet up with other salarymen, and that's who they go drinking with and stuff like that. And like people who make manga tend to read manga, and people who make anime tend to watch other animations, and so on and so forth. A lot of people who make games tend to play games. You kind of just like, there's a culture around your work, because your work is probably the most prestigious part of your life, really. That's kind of like the mentality they have there. So most game devs that I've ever read about that come from Japan are all like the coolest people. Even if I don't agree with a lot of the stuff they do, they tend to be like some of the most chill people in the world, or trolls. But that's kind of cool in its own way. Compared to like a lot of the people who are in the industry over here, outside of the indie field. A lot of them are like really stuck up and pricks and shit like that. Yeah, they think there's some kind of like, they're elitists or whatever. Like, it's like, it's just a job, dude. Like, just relax. Get over yourself. Yeah, my problem always tends to be with the corporate level, because gamers typically aren't the people who run the companies. They're just the ones who make the games. Yeah. The people who run the companies tend to be like former salarymen and stuff. People are really good at pushing numbers around, because that's what they do, and they make a lot of decisions that I don't agree with, and I think even most of the devs don't agree with, but it's like they're happy to have their jobs.
Yeah, they talked a bit about like the monetization strategies and stuff like that, and how they were like Asmongold was relieved to find that in Final Fantasy they didn't have, it wasn't like constantly pushing you to stay in the game and play. Like I guess in WoW, he felt a lot of pressure to just be playing all the time. And with Final Fantasy, it's kind of like, okay, I can put it down and I don't have to feel pressured. I can go back and play whenever I want.
If anything, the game actually encourages you to put it down for a little while. Like, being the fact that it is a game highly based off of Dungeons and Dragons in the history of Final Fantasy, and we even see in more recent Final Fantasies, they bring back more traditional tabletop role-playing stuff into the system. They respect a rest. So if you take what is traditionally a short rest and spend 8 hours out of the game, they actually give you a rested experience boost. If you're in a town when you take your rest, because you have to be in a comfortable and safe place to get your full rest out of it. You get like a rested experience boost, where the next things you do afterwards will give you like double the experience. Or it's not really double, but you've got like a bar that you can fill that it'll show you like when the boost will run out.
Yeah. Yeah, and Yoshi P was saying like he actually hoped people wouldn't just play that game and then they'd put it down and play something else for a while and and come back to it and stuff like that. So it seems like a lot of a lower pressure environment.
Well, especially like being in a culture of working in a company where they make a lot of different games of a lot of different like genres. He's like, I like playing the other games from this company. I think you probably should too. Enjoy yourself. Be a well-rounded person. I'm making another Final Fantasy game. Hopefully you'll have time to play that and not just the one I worked on.
Yeah, really. They didn't talk at all about 16.
Yeah. But like you think any dev that's in a very healthy environment for creativity, which crunch is a thing over there, but overall I feel like creativity at some of these companies like Square, it's actually pretty good for a developer. You can do a lot of interesting things over there and really flex yourself. They're probably enjoying most of the other games that the other departments are doing. And they probably would love other people to enjoy them too. Like, hey, this is some cool stuff. Go play it.
I mean, it sounded like he was talking about games from other companies too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
well, that goes back to being in a healthy place, though, right? Like, if you're in a healthy, creative place, you don't even just care about the company you work at. You're just like, all this stuff is fun. Go have some fun. I want everybody to have fun everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and from what it sounds like, Blizzard has such, I don't know if it's because of turnover or something specific about their hiring practices, but like I think even the people playing the games like don't play the game. I mean, even the people developing the games don't play.
Oh yeah, no.
And they're just not gamers. They're just like, they're just like programmers, and they're just like not getting any joy out of it. They don't even understand what they're really doing, and it's just a completely different environment where it just sounds like it's
it's a very unhealthy space for creativity from what we've seen too.
Yeah.
Because everything has to be a certain way. So that means like you're boxed in on what you can make, especially if you would like to make something that's sexy. It's like, no, we don't do that here.
Yeah.
So it's like
really.
You're really limited on what you can do, to the point that it's like you probably don't want people playing any game but the one you worked on either, because it's like, I don't play those games. Like, I don't want you playing Overwatch I worked on. WoW, play this game. Because ultimately I don't really see a difference between these two games because I'm not a gamer myself.
Yeah. Speaking of game developers that aren't gamers, have you seen the embarrassing playthrough by David Jaffe of Metroid Dread? Do you know who that is?
I'm somewhat familiar with Jaffe, yes, but I've not seen his playthrough.
Oh my god. So he is apparently he worked on Twisted Metal and God of War.
Yeah.
He's a game designer. I don't think he was like lead designer or anything like that. But he happened to work on those. Oh God, he lives in Birmingham. I need to go find him and slap him in the face.
Well, okay, so here's the thing too. He's primarily a writer than anything, right?
Oh.
Like what he do after game design, he was a journalist.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Well, he's a shit gamer. Let me just tell you this. And he's put. I guess he must have. What's it called? He must have streamed a playthrough or a play. I don't think he played through. I don't think he played until the end of Metroid Dread, and he was criticizing it for the stupidest shit. Yeah. Like he just has it in his brain that this is a bad game, and so he has to like come up with ridiculous nonsense for why it's bad. And you just got to see his tweets and stuff. And I've tweeted a bit about it.
Yeah.
But David Jaffe playing Metroid Dread, he couldn't figure out where blocks are, breakable, like where you shoot at block, that's a key aspect of every Metroid going back to Metroid 1.
Yeah.
Was finding breakable blocks that you can shoot, blocks that you can bomb with, when you roll up in a ball, blocks you can just walk through in some cases. And it wasn't like very limited ones, whatever iterations of Metroid do you have any means of seeing the breakable blocks. Like Super Metroid has like a radar thing. Samus Returns and Metroid Dread eventually gives you a radar pulse thing to see them. But most of them, you just have to find them just by pure luck. And he was complaining about this and saying that this was poor game design. And I'm like, dude, it's a central aspect of Metroid.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know. There's certain aspects of that game that I don't know if I like or not, and I'm refusing to weigh in on it until I get my hands on it. Because there's some things that I'm initially critical of while watching people play it, but I'm like, I need to get a feel for it. I really don't want to be critical of it until I personally can get a feel of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, there's one particular clip where he didn't realize that you could shoot the ceiling.
Oh, okay.
And get through, and that was a key area where you couldn't progress until you figured that out. And what I realized was he's not doing Y aiming. So if you stand still and hit Y, then you have full 360 aiming. And I watched him play, and I realized he doesn't even know that you could do that, or he's just not doing it. Because when he shot, so like basically the way you figure out that it's a breakable ceiling is that there's enemies on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And if you stand there and aim at them, you're going to accidentally hit the ceiling, and oh wow, it shoots right through it.
Yeah, not they do that a lot in Metroid, where if something's breakable, they'll give you something nearby you might want to shoot. And you're like, oh, hey, look, there's a breakable block.
Yeah. Plus, there's enemies that you can see above it that are clearly above it. And so somebody cobbled together clips of all these different streamers, like accidentally finding out that you could break through that ceiling. And it's kind of hilarious because they're just like, shooting at the enemies above them. But then I watched him streaming, and he doesn't shoot up. He jumps and shoots across because he doesn't realize he can aim 360 degrees. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's why he never figured it out, because he doesn't even know how to aim. And I was like, God, that guy sucks. But anyway, and then somebody put together
games holding your hand now, which I think is bad game design. I think the idea of putting visuals that make you want to do something to them to get you to accidentally figure out game design is a much better thing, because it's the game teaching you what to do through actual gameplay. It's kind of like referring to Miyamoto's always broken this down. And he'll use the very first level of Mario as his example of, like, this is how you design a game to teach players to play it from the beginning. Very first level of Mario, what's the very first thing you see? There's a Goombas. There's two Goombas, like, coming after you, right? And if you don't do anything, if you don't hit any buttons to figure out what to do, the Goombas run in and kill you. So the next round, you're incentivized to do something. If you start hitting any of the buttons, you'll eventually figure out you can jump, right? So then you're like, oh, I can jump over the Goombas. You don't know if you can jump on them yet, but you at least know you can jump over to avoid them. Eventually, you might figure out that you can jump on them. But then the next very important part of game design there is that you come across these stairs with a hole between them, but it's solid at the bottom. So you go up the stairs, and you learn you can jump across them. And if you don't know how long you have to hold the button to jump across, it's okay. No harm, no foul. There's just a floor there that'll catch you, and you can jump back up, and you can learn, right? The next time you see the same ladder, there's a pit in between it, but you already know what you need to do to cross it. So the game taught you what to do on the way. That's good game design. A game putting up messages saying, hey, press Y to point in any direction to shoot is really bad game design, because it means it did not teach you what to do properly. Yeah, well, I put in the chat a link to a tweet of mine. I didn't put this together, but somebody took a screenshot of this playthrough with David Jaffe playing Metroid Dread, where he couldn't figure out how to shoot the ceiling, or that you were supposed to. And it shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways that the game is directing you to shoot the ceiling. Like it outlines all the 8 different ways. And then at the end, and I won't go through all of them, but it's pretty much the stuff that I just talked about. And then it says in the corner, not pictured, in-game tutorial explaining that you should shoot suspicious walls with missiles if you appear stuck. No, I know that they always do that in those games too. But like a modern game, when you got to that point, there would have been like a hint that popped up after like 5 seconds of you not figuring out. It's like, hey, maybe you should try this thing. And I hate that. I like that Dread doesn't do shit like that. Yeah, but it's funny, the breakdown. And some people might argue whether or not all of these 8 things are real. But it's funny that it's just like, okay, there's the enemy here, and the width of it, and then the background looks like it continues from the bottom, from below the ceiling to above it, and then all this other stuff. It's like, dude, it's just it's funny. Well, there used to be a thing where a lot of, like, I would say the mid generations of game designers were gamers who grew up on other game designers' products, right? And one of the reasons I think that came is because if you played a lot of video games, you started to think in the same way that the game designers did, because you started to pick up the patterns that they were laying down. So you could go to a new game, and a lot of times you didn't even have to like really struggle to figure something out. Now you're looking for things that the designers would have put in place. Like by the time you get to Link to the Past, you're already looking for caves that you can open up with bombs because of the first Zelda game, right? And like game designers over long periods of time were basically training you, and that made a really good generation of designers. I think like the mid 90s through the early aughts made some of the best games because they were people who grew up on older games before that. But for some reason, now we're getting a lot of people who don't even play games that are designing it. So we get like a lot of really bad games. And we also have a lot of people who play more bad games than not. So they don't even think like good game designers do anymore. And they come to a point like this, and the classic patterns don't even stand out to them. And it's sad when you're somebody who has worked in game design.
Yeah, it makes me not want to play God of War or Twisted Metal.
Which honestly are good games. I've played the old God of Wars and Twisted Metals. I don't know which one they're talking about, honestly. Just say, because God of War could refer to the original God of War or the recent one, because they have the same name. Yeah. But like, if we're talking about the original God of War, it's a good game.
I think it's the original.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, judging by his career, I would have assumed it was the original, from like how early I've heard his name. The original Twisted Metal, good game. I would call these good games. with very good design. Actually, a couple of these fall into that exact generation I was talking about, where it was people who grew up playing games and were influenced by the designers before them, and they came up with interesting game designs that would teach you how to play the game as you were playing it for the most part.
Yeah, I can't figure out why he has a thing about Metroid Dread, where he's just decided it's bad, and so he's
I don't know.
Figure out reasons for why it's bad.
I'm going in with hopes when I finally play it, because you know my bias against Mercury Steam, but I've told you, I would be very happy to be proven wrong and to take them out of the flagged list. Like, oh, hey, you've changed. I don't have to worry about you anymore. I would be totally happy to just enjoy that game. I'm going in with high hopes.
You know what? He fucking went to high school with my sisters.
Wow.
I just realized he is 6 years older than me, which means he's the exact age of my youngest sister, which means he was in high school and he went to Mountain Brook High. Bastard. Yeah. I bet they know him.
Probably.
I was like, he's from Mountain Brook, Alabama? Jesus Christ. I know. He's like
you need to shame
right down the
guy.
Street.
I know. Shame this fellow.
Let me tell you. Yeah, I'm sure he would appreciate me knocking on his door, being like, "Let me tell you why you're wrong."
From one developer to another.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
No. Just we can shame your peer here on live air, like on air.
That's right. I'm not going to look you up, David.
No, watch. He probably has like freaking alerts for any time his name pops up, and he's gonna look you up, and you're gonna have him show up to your door.
Yeah, he's gonna be like Bookie, be like, "I'm gonna shoot you if you come here." That's a warning shot. I'm gonna shoot a warning shot.
God,
oh jeez.
This isn't firing a cannon across the bow in the open sea. There are no warning shots in population.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we've gone way over. So.
Yeah, we're over. That's fine. We weren't here for the last couple days. Thanks for watching. Yeah. If you enjoy the show, please share it with somebody else you might like. And if you really enjoy the show, consider giving a donation to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. It really helps out as it pays for the hosting fees of where I keep the podcast up. So it goes to everybody, maybe even you who are listening to this right now sometime in the future. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.